Good morning, students. We are discussing chapter tissues, and under that, we are discussing plant tissues. And in our previous lecture, we have discussed about meristematic tissues, and today we'll discuss about the second type of plant tissues, that are permanent tissues. And let us see what are permanent tissues and how are they further classified. As we have discussed about this, that plant tissues are mainly classified into two types, meristematic and permanent tissues. And permanent tissues are further classified into two types, simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. And you must have remembered this thing, that permanent tissues are the tissues which do not have ability to divide, means they are not meant for the growth. Their main function is for providing mechanical support or storage or conduction of various substances. So let us discuss what are these simple and complex permanent tissues. So firstly, we need to understand how these or why these permanent tissues are classified into two types, simple and complex tissue. As you can see in the diagram, simple permanent tissue is shown here, and you can see that all the cells are similar in shape or similar in structure, you can say. Whereas in complex tissue, you can see that more than one type of cells are present. So on the basis of type of cells, permanent tissue is classified into two types. Simple tissues are made up of same type of cells, whereas complex permanent tissues are made up of more than one type of cells. So let us see how they are different from each other. A plant tissue which is made up of single type of cells is called a simple permanent tissue, whereas if it is made up of different type of cells, then it is called complex permanent tissues. Basically, simple permanent tissue is distributed in all parts of the plant in the form of ground tissue, whereas complex permanent tissue is present as a vascular tissue which provide the function of transportation of materials. And simple permanent tissue is further classified into parenchyma, sclerenchyma, colonchyma. Complex permanent tissue is further classified into two types, xylem and phloem. All the cells of simple permanent tissues are of similar type, hence this is also termed as homogeneous tissue, whereas complex permanent tissue may be categorized as a heterogeneous tissue. And all the cells perform similar function, whereas complex permanent tissues, all cells are different in function, but they collectively cooperate to perform a specific function. Firstly, we'll discuss simple permanent tissues. Simple permanent tissue is the basic ground tissue present in plant. As you can see, this is the transverse section of plant stem, and the tissue which is basically present everywhere, or it is distributed everywhere, written as ground tissue. This is the main simple permanent tissue present in plant. And basically it is made up of similar type of cells having similar origin, and all the cells perform a simple single function. And this tissue actually helps to store nutrients like food and water, and it is basically helping to providing mechanical support to plants. Let us discuss three types of simple permanent tissues. The first type of simple permanent tissue is parenchyma. Parenchyma is basically most simple and unspecialized tissue, means cells are quite simple and no special characteristic feature is present in the cells. And this is actually basic packing tissue or the main ground tissue of the plant, and it is actually located everywhere, you can say distributed. Wherever main specialized tissues are present, the space in between is filled by this packing tissue. So the cells are living with thin primary cell wall made up of cellulose. Intercellular spaces are present as the cells are loosely packed, and cells are oval, spherical or polyhedral in shape, and a large centrally located vacuole is present, as the main function of this tissue is storage. Hence, these cells have centrally located large prominent vacuole. And this tissue can further be classified into two types. When it is present in leaves and young stem, then it performs and it contains chloroplast, where it performs the function of photosynthesis. So that type of parenchyma tissue is called Colonchyma. And in certain aquatic plants, where it has certain cavities which is filled with air, there it is said to be Parenchyma, where it provides help in floating. That is, it provides buoyancy to plants that helps to float in water. Example, hydrilla. Now next we'll discuss where or what is the location of parenchyma cells. Parenchymatous cells are present all over the plant as a basic packing tissue in roots, stem, leaves, fruits, etc. And its basic function is to store various important materials like nutrients, and in desert plants it also stores water as well. And where it is present in the form of Colonchyma, it performs photosynthesis, and in aquatic plants it provides buoyancy. Second type of simple permanent tissue is Colonchyma. Colonchyma is this kind of specialized tissue, and it is basically a supportive tissue. The cells are living, and the cells are covered with a thin primary cellulosic cell wall, but this has a kind of uneven thickening due to deposition of pectin at the corners. As you can see in the diagram, the red colored thickening portion is of pectin, which is a kind of inorganic substance, gets deposited on the cell wall additional to the cellulose. Intercellular spaces are generally absent because of the deposition of pectin at corners. Cells are elongated and polygonal shaped. And a centrally located vacuole is also present, as you can see in the diagram. And they may also contain chloroplast, but their basic function is to provide mechanical support. Location of Colonchyma in plants is actually they are present below epidermis in the stem. स्टेम में जो आउटर प्रोटेक्टिव कवरिंग है एपिडर्मिस, उसके बिलो ही प्रेजेंट होता है टिश्यू, एंड इट इज ऑल्सो प्रेजेंट इन लीफ स्टाक, मिड रिब. लीव्स की जो मिड रिब है और उनके नीचे जो पिटियोल्स होते हैं, दैट इज मेड अप ऑफ कॉलेनकाइमा टिश्यू. बिकॉज द बेसिक फंक्शन ऑफ कॉलेनकाइमा इज टू प्रोवाइड फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी टू एरियल पार्ट. जितने भी पार्ट हवा में रहते हैं प्लांट्स के, उनमें एक फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी जो प्रोवाइड होती है, दैट इज ड्यू टू कॉलेनकाइमा. बिकॉज दिस टिश्यू provides or allows easy bending without breaking of branches, leaves and stem. Hence it provides a kind of mechanical strength to young parts of the plants. Next type of simple permanent tissue is Sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma is the major supportive tissue made up of specialized cells. Cells become dead at maturity. This is the important thing to remember. Sclerenchymatous cells are dead at maturity, whereas parenchyma and Colonchyma cells are living cells. And the cells become dead due to the deposition of secondary cell wall, which was absent in parenchyma and Colonchyma. The secondary cell wall is made up of lignin. So this lignified cell wall provides a kind of even thickening on the primary cell walls, and due to impermeability of this lignified cell wall, the cells become dead. And as you can see in the diagram, there are certain specific regions where lignin depositions are absent. So these regions are called pits, and due to these pits, these cells actually are connected with the neighboring cells. Intracellular spaces are absent as cells are compactly arranged and they have very thick deposition over the cell wall, and cells are elongated and isodiametric in shape, and protoplasm is absent at maturity. And as lignified thick wall provides you can say a large area is covered by this thickening, so very little space is left between the cells, represented as narrow lumen in the diagram. And it is present in hard seed coat of nuts, fibers in the form of fibers. It is present in plants, grit of fruits, apples and pears, they have a hard type of pulp. So that hard grit of fruits is also due to sclerenchymatous cells, husk of coconut, and it is also present in stem between the vascular bundles and leaf veins. Leaf veins may be a tissue presenter that there it provides mechanical strength. Function is basically as it has a lignified thick wall. So this major function of this tissue is to provide mechanical strength and support, and the fibers are also commercially used, like in the form of husk of coconut, jute, flax, hemp, etc. All these are sclerenchymatous fibers. Now let us see what are the comparative features of these three types of simple permanent tissues. Have a look at the diagrams, and as you can see here in the diagram, parenchymatous tissues have a thin cell wall made up of cellulose only, intercellular spaces. You can see a centrally located large prominent vacuole because these cells are basically for storage. In Colonchyma tissue, you can see deposition at the corners, and the cells do not have large intercellular spaces. And in sclerenchymatous tissue, the entire cell wall is quite thick due to secondary deposition of lignin, and the cells are left with a very narrow lumen, and these cells actually are dead due to lignified deposition, whereas the cells of Colonchyma and Parenchyma tissue is living. So let us differentiate them. Parenchyma cells are found in every soft part of plant as a basic packing tissue. Colonchyma cells are found in petiole, leaves and young stems. Sclerenchyma is found in the mature part of plant where the mechanical strength is required. And parenchyma cells are most unspecialized cells, whereas Colonchymatous and Sclerenchymatous cells are specialized. Parenchyma cells they have thin cell wall only of cellulose, whereas Colonchyma tissue is containing the cells having uneven thickening of pectin, whereas cells of Sclerenchyma tissue has a waterproofing material which is known as lignin deposition, and hence the cell wall is evenly thickened. Intercellular spaces are present between the cells. Very little intercellular spaces are present in Colonchymatous cells, whereas no intercellular spaces are present in Sclerenchymatous cells. Parenchymatous cells are living at maturity. Colonchyma cells are also living at maturity, whereas Sclerenchymatous cells are dead at maturity. Now the function of parenchymatous cells are photosynthesis, storage of food, gases exchange, and providing buoyancy in aquatic plants. And Colonchymatous and Sclerenchymatous cells are basically supportive tissue. So Colonchymatous cells is responsible for flexibility and to provide easy bending of the plant's parts, aerial parts basically. And in the old plants, you can say when the parts are getting matured, so they are getting mechanical support and protection due to sclerenchymatous tissue present in the plants. Hope the things are clear to you all. Thank you and have a nice day. Next we will discuss about the complex permanent tissue in next lecture.